On November 15th, I walked into my childhood home in Maplewood Heights wearing my uniform. My mother was hosting her annual charity luncheon, surrounded by her socialite friends and my sister Vanessa. The moment I stepped through the door, my mother's laughter cut through the air like glass. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Oh look, everyone. The flight attendant is here. Probably between shifts serving peanuts and orange juice. The room erupted in polite giggles. Vanessa, draped in designer labels, smirked from across the marble foyer. My mother didn't even look at me, just waved her hand dismissively. Sweetheart, we're in the middle of something important. The kitchen entrance is around back if you need to drop something off. They didn't know who they were messing with. In less than 2 hours, I would shatter every assumption they'd made about my life. My name is Captain Marianne Cross. I'm 31 years old. And if you think this is just another story about family disappointment, you're wrong. This is about the moment I stopped letting them write my narrative. What happens when the people who raised you refuse to see who you've become? When your accomplishments are invisible because they don't fit their idea of success? The scent of expensive perfume and catered hors d'oeuvres filled the air as I stood in the entryway of the house I grew up in. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above, casting light on faces I'd known my entire life, faces that had never really seen me. My mother, Patricia Cross, stood at the center of her social circle like a queen holding court. She wore pearls and a cream Chanel suit, her silver hair styled perfectly. This luncheon was her pride, her twice-yearly event where she raised money for worthy causes, while reminding everyone of her family's status in Maplewood Heights. My sister Vanessa leaned against the grand piano, phone in hand, already recording. She loved moments like this. Moments where she could position herself as the successful daughter while I played the role of the disappointment. Mari still playing dress up in that little uniform? Vanessa said loud enough for others to hear. I thought you'd have grown out of that phase by now. A woman I recognized as Mrs. Helena Whitmore, one of Mother's oldest friends, tilted her head sympathetically. Patricia, I thought you said Marianne was working in hospitality? My mother's smile was tight. She is. In her own way. We're very proud, of course. Everyone needs to find their path, even if it's not quite what we hoped. The condescension dripped like honey, sweet on the surface but meant to sting. I'd heard variations of this my entire adult life. 8 years of hearing it, to be exact. 8 years since I walked away from the law degree they'd pushed me toward and enrolled in flight school instead. I stood there in my navy blue uniform, the 4 golden stripes on my shoulders apparently invisible to everyone in the room. Or maybe they just didn't know what they meant. To them, a uniform was a uniform. Service was service. They couldn't tell the difference between a flight attendant and a captain because they'd never bothered to ask. Mother, I said calmly, my voice steady. Can we talk? Privately? She waved me off without looking. Not now, darling. As you can see, I have guests. Important guests. We're finalizing the foundation gala for next month. Vanessa laughed, her voice sharp. Let me guess, you want to ask for money again? Maybe upgrade from economy class to business? More laughter rippled through the room. I felt the old familiar burn in my chest, the one that used to make me leave early, make excuses, disappear before the humiliation became unbearable. But not today. Today, something was different. I reached into my shoulder bag and pulled out a small black leather portfolio. The kind pilots carry. The kind that holds licenses, certifications, and documentation. I set it gently on the marble entryway table. Since we're talking about careers and success, I said evenly, my voice cutting through the chatter, I thought I'd share some news. The room quieted slightly. My mother finally looked at me, her expression a mixture of annoyance and curiosity. Marianne, this really isn't the time. I've been named lead training captain for Skyward International Airlines, I continued, my tone calm but firm. Effective last month. I'll be overseeing pilot training programs across North America and Europe. The promotion came with a base salary that's, well, let's just say it's more than Dad made in his best year as a consultant. Silence. Complete, suffocating silence. Mrs. Whitmore's teacup paused halfway to her lips. Vanessa's phone slowly lowered. My mother's face went blank, her carefully practiced smile frozen in place. "You're, what?" Mother whispered. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I opened the portfolio. Inside was my captain's license, my ATP certificate, my training credentials, and a letter on official Skyward International letterhead congratulating me on my promotion. I laid them out one by one on the table like cards in a winning hand. "I'm not a flight attendant, Mother," I said quietly. "I haven't been for 7 years. I've been a commercial airline captain since I was 26. And now I'm the person who trains other captains." The air in the room shifted. It was like watching a tower of assumptions collapse in slow motion. Vanessa's mouth opened, but no words came out. Mrs. Whitmore set her teacup down with a loud clink. My mother stared at the documents like they were written in a foreign language. "But, you never said, you always just said you worked for an airline." "You never asked," I replied. "You assumed. And every time I tried to tell you, you changed the subject or made a joke about serving coffee at 30,000 feet. My father appeared from the study, drawn by the unusual silence. Richard Cross, retired consultant, a man who measured success in titles and tax brackets. He looked at the documents, then at me, then at my mother. "Patricia," he said slowly. "Is this real?" I smiled, not with bitterness, but with something close to liberation. "Every word. And there's more. But I think we should discuss it privately. Unless you'd like your luncheon guests to hear about how you've spent the last 8 years mocking a career you didn't understand." For the first time in my adult life, I watched my mother struggle for words. The woman who always had a response, always had control, stood speechless in her own foyer. And I realized something profound: I didn't need her approval anymore. I'd already earned something better. Respect. Just not from her. Not yet, anyway. But that was about to change. Because what they didn't know was this was only the beginning. What came next would rewrite everything they thought they knew about me, and about themselves. 3 hours earlier, before I walked into that house, my life looked very different than they imagined. I woke up at 5 a.m. in my downtown apartment in Riverside District, a renovated loft with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. The kind of place my mother would have loved to show off to her friends, if only she'd known I lived there. The morning light filtered through the glass as I went through my pre-flight routine, even though I wasn't flying today. Old habits. Coffee first. Always coffee. I stood at the counter, watching the city wake up below, and checked my phone. 17 messages in the crew group chat. Captain duties never really stop, even on days off. My co-pilot, Jensen Mitchell, had sent a photo from Tokyo where he'd just landed. "Thanks for the approach tips, Cap nailed the landing." I smiled. Training pilots was the part of the job I'd grown to love most. There was something profound about watching someone master a skill you'd taught them, seeing them gain confidence in the cockpit, knowing you'd made them safer, better. My apartment was quiet, organized, exactly how I liked it. Flight manuals stacked neatly on the bookshelf next to aviation history books. My captain's hat resting on the console table by the door. Framed photos of me standing in front of aircraft, shaking hands with airline executives, receiving my training captain certification. My real life, the one my family had never seen. I'd moved here 4 years ago after my promotion to senior captain. The mortgage was steep, but manageable on my salary. The same salary my mother assumed was barely above minimum wage because she'd never bothered to Google what airline captains actually earn. By 7:30 a.m., I was dressed in civilian clothes, jeans, and a sweater, heading to Clearwater Aviation Academy on the south side of the city. This was my Saturday routine. Once a month, I volunteered at the academy, mentoring young women interested in aviation careers. Girls who'd been told, like I had been, that flying was a man's job. That they should aim for something more realistic. The academy was housed in a converted hangar, all industrial beams and concrete floors, with a small fleet of training aircraft parked outside. Inside, simulators hummed, and the smell of jet fuel mixed with fresh coffee from the break room. Captain Cross. A voice called out as I walked in. It was Zara Patel, 17, bright-eyed, clutching her logbook. She'd just completed her first solo flight last week. How'd the debrief go? I asked. Perfect. Instructor said I'm ready to start cross-country planning. Her smile was enormous. I remembered that feeling. The exhilaration of realizing you could actually do this, that the sky wasn't a limit but a destination. That's incredible, Zara. You've worked so hard. She hesitated, then said quietly, my parents still don't get it. They keep asking when I'm going to focus on medical school applications. I squeezed her shoulder. Keep going. One day they'll understand. Or they won't. But you'll be flying either way. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, giving advice I was still learning to follow myself. By 10 a.m., I was back in my car, heading toward Maplewood Heights. The drive took 40 minutes, winding through newer developments and then older, wealthier neighborhoods with gates and pristine lawns. My childhood home sat at the end of Whitestone Boulevard, a massive colonial with white columns and perfectly manicured hedges. I hadn't planned to attend my mother's luncheon. In fact, I'd successfully avoided the last 3. But this morning, something changed. Maybe it was Zara's question about parents not understanding. Maybe it was the email I'd received yesterday from Skyward International CEO, personally congratulating me on being shortlisted for Director of Flight Operations. Or maybe I was just tired of being invisible. I parked on the street, not in the circular driveway. That felt too presumptuous, somehow. Even though this was technically still my childhood home, I always felt like a guest. An uninvited one. I sat in the car for a moment, looking at the house. Growing up here had been complicated. My parents weren't cruel, just deeply invested in appearances. Success meant the right schools, the right careers, the right social circles. My father's consulting firm. My mother's charity work. Vanessa's marketing executive position at a Fortune 500 company. And then there was me. The daughter who'd walked away from Columbia Law School after one semester to pursue a fantasy, as my father had called it. You'll never make a real living flying planes, Marianne, he'd said, sitting across from me at this very house 8 years ago. This is a phase. A rebellion. You're throwing away your future. My mother had cried. Not out of support, but disappointment. What will I tell people? That my daughter gave up law school to be, what? A stewardess? I'd tried to explain. Tried to tell them about flight school, about my passion for aviation, about the career path I'd researched meticulously. But they didn't want to hear it. So eventually, I stopped trying to make them understand. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. I'd deliberately worn my uniform today. The navy blue blazer with the 4 golden stripes on each shoulder. The wings pinned above my name tag. Captain M. Cross, Skyward International. I wore it like armor. Because today, I wasn't coming as the disappointment daughter. I was coming as the person I'd actually become. I grabbed my portfolio from the passenger seat, the one containing all my certifications, my promotion letter, my achievements. Evidence. Not because I needed to prove anything to myself, but because I knew they'd never believe me otherwise. The walkway to the front door was lined with luxury cars. BMWs, Mercedes, a Lexus. My mother's friends were already here, which meant I was late by her standards. I could hear voices and laughter drifting from inside, the sound of crystal glasses clinking, the murmur of polite conversation. I paused at the door, my hand on the brass handle. For a split second, I considered turning around. Going home. Letting them continue believing whatever they wanted. It would be easier. Less confrontational. But then I thought about Zara. About all the young women I mentored who fought to be seen, to be taken seriously. If I couldn't stand up for myself in my own family, how could I tell them to stand up in theirs? I opened the door and stepped inside. The foyer was exactly as I remembered. Marble floors, sweeping staircase, the chandelier my mother had imported from France. Everything spotless, expensive, designed to impress. And that's when I heard it. My mother's voice, bright and performative, floating from the living room. "Oh look, everyone. The flight attendant is here." The laughter that followed wasn't malicious, exactly. Just dismissive. The kind of laughter that comes from people who think they're in on a joke. They had no idea the joke was about to be on them. The laughter still hung in the air like expensive perfume gone stale. I stood in the doorway between the foyer and the living room, watching the scene unfold as if I were watching a movie I'd seen too many times before. My mother held court from her favorite wingback chair, the cream-colored one positioned perfectly to catch the afternoon light. Around her sat 6 women, all dressed in variations of the same wealth uniform, tailored pantsuits, silk blouses, statement jewelry that cost more than most people's monthly rent. These were the women of the Maplewood Heights Charitable Foundation, my mother's carefully curated social circle. Mrs. Helena Whitmore sat closest to my mother, nodding along to whatever had just been said. Next to her was Diane Chen, a real estate mogul who'd made millions flipping properties in the downtown district. Then Gloria Hartfield, whose husband owned half the car dealerships in the state. The others I recognized but couldn't name, faces from a childhood spent at charity galas and country club brunches, where children were meant to be seen, not heard, and definitely not disappointing. Vanessa stood near the bay window, phone still in hand, probably already composing some snarky social media post about my unexpected arrival. She'd always been good at that, turning family moments into content, packaging our dysfunction as quirky relatability for her followers. My sister was everything my parents had hoped for. Stanford MBA. Director of Marketing at Nexus Corp by 29. Engaged to Bradley Ashford, a venture capitalist whose family tree could be traced back to the Mayflower, or so they claimed at every opportunity. She wore her success like the designer clothes on her back, expensive, visible, undeniable. And then there was me. The cautionary tale. The daughter who'd thrown it all away. "Mari, honestly," Vanessa said, finally looking up from her phone. "Did you really need to come here in your work clothes? Mother has guests." I stayed calm, even as the familiar knot tightened in my stomach. Years of cockpit training had taught me to control my emotions under pressure. A captain doesn't snap. A captain assesses, decides, acts. I came from a work commitment, I said evenly. I didn't have time to change. My mother sighed, that particular sigh that conveyed disappointment without words. A work commitment on a Saturday morning? "Darling, I know the airline industry has irregular hours, but surely you could have." "I was mentoring at Clearwater Aviation Academy," I interrupted gently. "I volunteer there once a month." Mrs. Whitmore perked up. "Oh, how lovely. Teaching young people about travel and hospitality?" The assumption landed like a punch, but I kept my expression neutral. "Teaching young women how to fly planes, actually." A beat of confused silence. Diane Chen smiled politely. "You mean, like a hobby? Small aircraft?" "Commercial aircraft," I clarified. "I mentor aspiring airline pilots." Vanessa laughed, sharp and sudden. "Oh my God, Mari. You can't just claim to teach pilots because you work around them. That's like saying a paralegal teaches lawyers." The women chuckled, that same polite, dismissive sound. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of conversation but unsure how to redirect it without acknowledging me further. Lacked conviction. Isn't it? I pulled out my phone, scrolling quickly to find what I was looking for. Last Thanksgiving. I told you I'd just completed my 787 type rating. Do you remember what you said, Dad?" He said nothing. "You said, 'That's nice, sweetie. Pass the stuffing.' You literally cared more." Abo. My father emerged from his study at that moment, drawn by the commotion. Richard Cross, 62, retired consultant, and the man who'd built his entire identity around being the smartest person in every room. He still wore reading glasses perched on his head and carried a tumbler of scotch even though it was barely noon. "What's all this about?" he asked, scanning the room until his eyes landed on me. His expression shifted through several emotions: surprise, confusion, then resignation. "Marianne. I didn't know you were coming." "Neither did I," my mother muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. I took a breath. This was the moment I'd rehearsed in my head during the entire drive over. The moment I'd been preparing for, consciously or not, for 8 years. "Dad. Mom. I came because I have news. Important news." And I thought. I paused, choosing my words carefully. "I thought you'd want to hear it from me first." Vanessa rolled her eyes. "What, did you finally get promoted to business class service?" "Oh wait, let me guess, they're letting you announce the beverage options now?" The room erupted in laughter again, louder this time. Even Gloria Hartfield, who I'd always thought was kind, joined in. My mother covered her mouth, trying to suppress her smile but failing. My father didn't laugh. He just looked tired. "Marianne, we're in the middle of something here. Your mother's luncheon is important. Can this wait?" That word. Important. As if nothing I'd ever done had qualified. "No, Dad," I said quietly. "It can't." I walked further into the room, my uniform shoes clicking against the hardwood floor. I moved to the coffee table at the center of the seating arrangement and set down my black leather portfolio. The sound of it hitting the glass table echoed louder than it should have. "I need to correct something," I began, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "A misunderstanding that's been going on for a very long time." My mother waved her hand dismissively. "Sweetheart, please. Not now. We're discussing the foundation gala next month. We're trying to secure the Riverside Grand Ballroom, and Diane has connections." "I'm not a flight attendant," I said, cutting her off. The room went still. I've never been a flight attendant. Not once in my entire career. Vanessa lowered her phone slowly. Mrs. Whitmore's smile faltered. My father's Scotch glass paused halfway to his lips. My mother blinked. "What are you talking about?" "Of course you are. You work for an airline. You've said so yourself." "I said I work for Skyward International Airlines," I corrected. "I've said that for 8 years. What I didn't say, because none of you ever asked, is what I actually do there." I opened the portfolio, pulling out the first document. My airline transport pilot license. I held it up so they could see the official seal, the photo, the credentials. "I'm a pilot. I've been a commercial airline pilot for 7 years. And for the last 4 years, I've been a captain." The silence that followed was different now. Not dismissive. Not polite. Just stunned. Diane Chen leaned forward. "You fly the planes?" "I fly the planes," I confirmed. Vanessa's laugh was uncertain now, less confident. "Mari, come on. You can't just." I placed a second document on the table. Then a third. My type ratings for Boeing 737, 787, and Airbus A320 aircraft. My flight hours log, over 6,000 hours. My training captain certification from Skyward International. Last month, I continued, my voice gaining strength, I was promoted to lead training captain. That means I don't just fly. I teach other pilots how to fly. I design training programs. I evaluate captain candidates. I represent Skyward International at international aviation conferences. My mother's face had gone pale. "But, why didn't you tell us?" I looked at her directly, and for the first time in years, I let her see the hurt I'd been carrying. I tried, Mom. For 3 years, I tried. But every time I mentioned my career, you changed the subject. Or made a joke. Or assumed I was exaggerating. That's not fair, my father said, but his voice had dinner rolls than the fact that I'd qualified to fly a wide-body international aircraft. Mrs. Whitmore cleared her throat uncomfortably. Perhaps we should give you all some privacy. No, my mother said sharply. Stay. Please. She looked at me, really looked at me, for what felt like the first time in years. Marianne, if this is true. If? The word came out harder than I intended. Mom, I'm standing here in my captain's uniform. 4 stripes. See them? I pointed to my shoulders. 4 stripes means captain. 1 stripe is first officer. 3 is senior first officer. This isn't complicated. Vanessa finally spoke, her voice smaller than before. Why didn't you correct us? All this time, you just let us think. Let you think? I turned to her. Vanessa, at Christmas 2 years ago, I tried to explain my promotion to captain. You literally interrupted me to talk about your Peloton bike. When I tried again, you said, it's cute that you're passionate about your little job. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I pulled out the final document. The letter from Skyward International's CEO on official letterhead, congratulating me on my promotion to lead training captain and the accompanying salary increase. I didn't show them the number, but I let them see the seal, the signature, the date. This is who I am, I said quietly. This is who I've been. And I came here today because I thought. I hoped that maybe you'd finally want to know. My mother's hand trembled as she reached for her wine glass. My father stood frozen, documents scattered across the coffee table between us like accusations. And in that moment, I realized something profound. Their shock wasn't just about my career. It was about the fact that I'd built an entire life they knew nothing about. A successful, meaningful, accomplished life that had happened right in front of them while they weren't looking. The question was, what would they do with that information now? The silence stretched like the moment before turbulence hits. I watched my mother's carefully composed expression begin to crack, saw my father's eyes moving between the documents on the table and my face, as if trying to reconcile 2 different versions of reality. Then Vanessa laughed. Not her usual sharp, dismissive laugh, but something uncertain, almost nervous. Okay, Mari. This is a lot to process. But you have to admit, you're partly to blame here. If you'd just been clearer about. Clearer? The word came out before I could stop it. Vanessa, I told you I was in flight school. I told you when I got my commercial license. I told you when I was hired by Skyward. I told you when I upgraded to captain. At what point was I unclear? She shifted uncomfortably, glancing at our mother for support. You always made it sound so casual. Like it was just some adventure you were on. Not a real career. Because every time I tried to make it sound real, you tuned out. I pulled my phone out again, this time opening my photo gallery. Here. This is from 3 years ago. My captain's ceremony. I turned the screen toward them. The photo showed me standing in front of a Boeing 787, wearing my new captain's uniform, receiving my certificate from the Skyward International Vice President of Flight Operations. There were at least 50 people in the background, other pilots, airline executives, training staff. It was clearly official, clearly significant. I sent this to the family group chat, I said. With a message that said, finally made captain. 4 years of hard work paid off. Do you remember what you responded, Mom? My mother's face had gone from pale to flushed. I don't recall. You sent a thumbs up emoji. That's it. Dad didn't respond at all. And Vanessa. I scrolled to show the message thread. You wrote, cute pic. Love the uniform. Very professional looking. You thought I was dressing up. Vanessa's jaw tightened. That's not fair. You can't just. I'm not trying to be unfair, I interrupted, my voice still calm but firm. I'm trying to show you that this isn't about me hiding who I am. It's about you refusing to see it. Mrs. Whitmore stood abruptly, setting down her teacup with a sharp clink. Patricia, I think we should reschedule this planning session. This seems like a family matter. Helena, please sit, my mother said, her voice strained. She turned to me, and for the first time, I saw something I'd never seen before, uncertainty. Marianne, I don't understand. If all of this is true, why would you let us go on believing? Because I got tired, Mom. The words came out heavier than I intended. I got tired of fighting to be seen. Of explaining myself over and over. Of watching your eyes glaze over every time I talked about my life. So eventually, I just stopped. My father finally moved, setting his scotch down on the mantel. That's dramatic, Marianne. We've always supported you. Have you? I pulled out another document from my portfolio, this one older, creased from being folded and unfolded many times. This is the letter I sent you 8 years ago when I decided to leave Columbia Law School. Do you remember what it said? He didn't answer. I wrote 6 pages explaining my decision. My passion for aviation, my research into career paths, my financial planning, everything. I poured my heart into that letter. I unfolded it slowly. You know what you wrote back? I pulled out my phone again, showing an email dated 8 years prior. My father's response had been exactly 3 sentences. Marianne, your mother and I are very disappointed. We won't support this decision financially or otherwise. We hope you'll reconsider before you throw your life away. The words hung in the air like indictments. Diane Chin shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Gloria Hartfield studied her manicure intently. The other women looked anywhere but at me. I didn't throw my life away, I said quietly. I built one. A good one. I'm just sorry you weren't interested in watching. Vanessa's voice came out defensive, almost childish. This is ridiculous. You're making us sound like monsters. We're your family. We love you. Do you? I looked at her directly. When's my birthday, Vanessa? She blinked. What? That's not. When is it? April, something. April 14th? April 22nd. It's been April 22nd for 31 years. I turned to my mother. What's my favorite food? My mother's mouth opened, closed. You like pasta? I'm allergic to wheat, Mom. I have been since I was 12. You're thinking of Vanessa. The color drained from my mother's face. My father looked away, jaw clenched. What airline do I work for? I asked, addressing all of them now. Skyward, my father said quickly, as if that proved something. What base am I assigned to? Silence. What aircraft types am I rated on? Nothing. Where did I fly last month? My mother's voice was barely a whisper. We don't know. Tokyo, Dubai, and London Heathrow. I was gone for 12 days. I sent photos to the family chat from each city. You didn't respond to a single one. I placed the phone back in my pocket. So when you say you love me, I believe you think you do. But you don't actually know me. You know a version of me that exists in your imagination. The disappointing daughter who gave up a real career to play stewardess. Mrs. Whitmore stood again, this time more decisively. Patricia, Richard, we really should leave you two. No, please stay, I said, surprising everyone, including myself. Because there's more, and I think it's important that people witness this conversation. My mother's eyes widened. Marianne, what are you? I pulled out my phone once more, this time opening my email app. 3 days ago, I received an offer. A formal offer from Skyward International to become their new director of flight operations for the North American region. It's one of the highest-ranking operational positions in the company. It comes with a seat on the executive board. The room went completely still. The salary is $340,000 base, plus performance bonuses and stock options. I'll be overseeing training programs, safety protocols, and operational standards for over 2,000 pilots across 15 bases. Diane Chen's eyes went wide. Gloria Hartfield's teacup clattered against its saucer. Even Vanessa looked genuinely shocked. My father's voice came out hoarse. $340,000? Plus bonuses. My total compensation package will likely exceed $500,000 annually. I let that sink in. For reference, Dad, that's more than you made at the peak of your consulting career. The year you and Mom kept reminding me was the standard I should aspire to. My mother looked like she might faint. But, how is that possible? You're only 31. I'm good at my job, Mom. Exceptionally good. I've logged more flight hours by age 31 than most pilots log by 40. I have 0 safety incidents, perfect evaluation scores, and I've developed training protocols that Skyward is now implementing industry-wide. I didn't get here because of luck or because someone felt sorry for me. I got here because I worked harder than almost anyone else. Vanessa's voice was small now, genuinely confused. Why didn't you tell us any of this? I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw something I hadn't expected. She genuinely didn't understand. She truly couldn't comprehend how their constant dismissal, their jokes, their complete lack of interest had silenced me. Because every single time I tried to share something about my career, you made fun of it. Every achievement was a punchline. Every accomplishment was cute or nice or brushed aside so you could talk about your marketing campaigns or Mom's charity work or Dad's golf game. After a while, I realized you didn't want to know. You wanted me to fit into the box you'd built for me, the disappointing daughter who threw away her potential. And anything that contradicted that narrative was just ignored. Mrs. Whitmore finally spoke, her voice gentle. Patricia, I think you need to hear what your daughter is saying. My mother's hands were shaking now. I hear her. I don't understand how this happened. How we missed all of this. You didn't miss it, I said softly. You chose not to see it. There's a difference. I gathered the documents from the coffee table, placing them carefully back in my portfolio. My hands were steady, my breathing controlled. Years of managing cockpit emergencies had taught me how to stay calm when everything around me was chaos. I came here today to tell you about my promotion, I said. I came because despite everything, some part of me still hoped you'd be proud. That you'd see me. Really see me. My father's voice cracked. We do see you, Marianne. No, Dad. You see what you expected to see. And now you're seeing what's actually been here all along, and you don't know what to do with it. I zipped up my portfolio and turned toward the door. But before I could take a step, my mother's voice stopped me. Wait. I turned back. She was standing now, her carefully composed facade completely shattered. Her eyes were red, though no tears had fallen yet. What do you want from us? She asked, her voice breaking. What do we do now? I considered the question. What did I want? An apology? Recognition? Years of dismissal erased with a few words? I want you to decide, I said finally. Whether you want to know who I actually am, or whether you want to keep believing in the daughter you invented. And with that, I walked toward the foyer, leaving them with a choice I'd never been brave enough to force before. I made it as far as the front door before my father's voice rang out behind me. Marianne, stop. Just stop for one damn minute. I paused, my hand on the brass doorknob, but didn't turn around. I could hear footsteps on the marble floor, multiple sets. They'd followed me out of the living room, all of them. My parents, Vanessa, even some of the luncheon guests hovering in the doorway, unable to resist the spectacle. You don't get to just drop this on us and walk away, my father continued, his voice tight with something between anger and desperation. You want to talk about fairness? About being seen? Then give us a chance to process this. I turned slowly. A chance to process? Dad, it's been 8 years. How much time do you need? He flinched. Good. Maybe he should feel uncomfortable for once. My mother stepped forward, her perfectly styled hair slightly disheveled now, her composure cracking further with each passing moment. Sweetheart, please. I know we've made mistakes. But you have to understand our perspective. When you left law school. When I left law school, I was 23 years old, I interrupted. I'm 31 now. At what point does my phase become my actual life? Vanessa crossed her arms, that defensive posture I knew so well. You're acting like we deliberately tried to hurt you. We didn't know. How could we know if you never? I told you. The words came out louder than I intended, echoing off the high ceilings. I told you over and over. I sent photos. I invited you to my captain's ceremony. I asked you to visit the flight training center. I tried for 3 solid years to include you in this part of my life, and every single time, you made it clear you weren't interested. I pulled my phone out again, my fingers moving quickly through folders until I found what I was looking for. Here. Let me refresh your memory. I held up the screen, showing a message I'd sent to the family group chat 4 years ago. Big news. Got my 787 type rating today. This means I can fly international routes. First trip is LAX to Tokyo next month. So proud of this accomplishment. Below it, the responses. Mom, that's nice dear. Dad, no response. Vanessa, cool. By the way, did you see the Nordstrom sale? They have those boots you liked. I scrolled to another message, from 3 years ago, just completed my upgrade to captain. Youngest female captain in Skyward's history. Couldn't have done it without all the support. The responses, Mom, wonderful honey. Don't forget your cousin Rachel's baby shower next Sunday. Dad, good for you kiddo. Vanessa, OMG, did you see Bachelor last night? We need to discuss. I kept scrolling, message after message, achievement after achievement, each one met with the same casual dismissal, the same pivot to something, anything, else. I documented everything, I said, my voice quieter now but no less intense. Not because I planned to use it against you someday, but because I kept thinking maybe I was imagining it. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe I was misremembering how little you cared. But no. It's all here. Years of me trying, and years of you not even pretending to listen. My father's face had gone from red to ashen. We didn't realize. That's the problem, Dad. You didn't realize. You didn't think to ask. You made assumptions, and those assumptions were more comfortable than the truth, so you just kept them. Mrs. Whitmore, who'd been watching from the living room doorway, spoke up quietly. Patricia, Richard, I think your daughter is right. I've known your family for 15 years, and I don't think I've ever heard Marianne talk about her actual job. Just vague mentions of the airline. And I think. She paused, choosing her words carefully. I think that's because whenever she tried, the conversation moved on. My mother turned to her friend, eyes wide. Helena, you can't possibly. I can, Mrs. Whitmore said firmly. Because I've done the same thing with my son. He's a teacher, and for years I kept waiting for him to do something more. Something I could brag about at parties. It took him sitting me down and telling me how much I'd heard him before I understood. I see that same hurt in Marianne's face right now. Silence fell over the foyer. Even Vanessa seemed to have run out of defenses. My mother's voice came out small, broken. When did we become these people? I don't know, Mom. But somewhere along the way, you decided that my life only mattered if it looked the way you wanted it to look. I slipped my phone back into my pocket. Do you want to know the really sad part? No one answered, but they were all listening now. Really listening. For years, I tried to make you proud by your standards. Perfect grades. Columbia acceptance. Law school enrollment. I was miserable, but I kept going because I thought that's what love looked like, sacrificing who I was to become who you wanted. And then one day, I was sitting in constitutional law, and the professor asked us why we'd chosen law. Everyone had these passionate answers about justice and advocacy and making a difference. I took a breath, the memory still sharp after all these years. When it was my turn, I realized I didn't have an answer. Not a real one. I was there because Dad said it was prestigious. Because Mom wanted to tell her friends I was going to be a lawyer. Because Vanessa had set this standard of achievement I felt I had to match. But I didn't want to be there. I wanted to be in the sky. My father's voice was hoarse. You never told us you were unhappy. I tried. The night before I left for Columbia, I sat with you both in the study and told you I'd been having doubts. Do you remember what you said? They didn't respond, but I could see in their faces they did remember. You said everyone gets cold feet before a big life change. That I'd thank you later. That this was normal. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. So I went. I gave it a semester. And every day I felt like I was suffocating. Then one weekend, I went to an aviation museum with my roommate. They had a flight simulator, just a basic one, and I tried it. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Vanessa spoke softly, almost tentatively. Why didn't you tell us that? I did tell you. In that 6-page letter Dad referenced. I explained everything, the museum visit, the research I'd done, the aviation programs I'd looked into, the career projections, the financial planning. I laid out my entire thought process. I looked at my father. You dismissed it in 3 sentences. He opened his mouth to respond, but I wasn't finished. Do you know what that taught me? It taught me that my feelings didn't matter. My dreams didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was whether I was living up to your expectations. So I stopped sharing my feelings. I stopped sharing my dreams. I just went and did them anyway, without you. That's not fair, my mother protested weakly. We were trying to protect you. The aviation industry is so competitive, so difficult. And I succeeded anyway, I said. Despite your lack of faith. Despite your constant dismissal. Despite having to do it completely alone because my own family couldn't be bothered to support me. My father stepped closer, his expression a mixture of pain and defensiveness. We would have supported you if we'd known. You knew enough, I cut him off. You knew I'd left law school. You knew I'd enrolled in flight school. You knew I'd been hired by an airline. You knew I was flying. You had all the information you needed. What you didn't have was curiosity. You didn't ask questions. You didn't want details. You wanted me to fail so you could say, I told you so, and I'd come crawling back to the path you'd chosen for me. That's not true, my mother whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? I challenged. Then explain to me why, in 8 years, not one of you has ever asked to see my cockpit. Why none of you have ever asked to jump seat on one of my flights. Why you've never asked about my schedule, my routes, my crew members, my experiences. Why you've never once asked me what it feels like to fly. The question hung in the air, unanswerable because we all knew the truth. Diane Chen, still standing in the living room doorway, spoke up. If I may. Captain Cross, what does it feel like? I turned to her, surprised. What? To fly, she clarified. What does it feel like? For a moment, I didn't know how to respond. No one in my family had ever asked me that. Not once. It feels like freedom, I said finally. Like every problem on the ground becomes small and manageable from 35,000 feet. It feels like responsibility, knowing that hundreds of people trust you with their lives every time you push back from the gate. It feels like constant learning, constant challenge, constant growth. It feels like coming home, even when I'm crossing an ocean. It feels. I paused, searching for the right words. It feels like who I was always meant to be. Diane nodded slowly. That's beautiful. And you're good at it? I'm excellent at it, I said without hesitation. Not because I'm arrogant, but because I've worked harder at this than I've ever worked at anything in my life. I've earned every rating, every promotion, every commendation. And it kills me that the people who raised me, the people who taught me what work ethic means, have never once acknowledged that. My mother was crying now, quiet tears running down her carefully made-up face. We didn't know. Marianne, we didn't know. You didn't want to know, I corrected gently. And that's what hurts the most. Vanessa's voice came out thick, like she was fighting tears herself. What can we do? How do we fix this? I looked at my sister, at my parents, at the life I'd spent 31 years trying to fit into. I don't know if you can, I said honestly. Because this isn't about one conversation or one apology. This is about 8 years of being invisible in my own family. 8 years of accomplishments that meant nothing to you. 8 years of building a life you couldn't be bothered to witness. But we want to witness it now, my father said urgently. We want to know. We want to understand. Please, Marianne. Tell us. Help us understand. I studied his face, looking for sincerity beneath the desperation. Looking for proof that this wasn't just about their discomfort, their embarrassment at being called out in front of their friends. Okay, I said finally. I'll tell you. Everything. But not here. Not now. Not in front of an audience. My mother nodded frantically. Yes. Yes, of course. Come to dinner. Tomorrow night. Just family. We'll listen. Really listen. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. But I'd been disappointed too many times before. Tomorrow night won't work, I said, pulling out my phone to check my calendar. I'm flying to Singapore. Departing at 11 p.m., which means I need to be at the airport by 8 for pre-flight briefing and checks. The looks on their faces would have been comical if the situation weren't so painful. It was as if the reality of my career was hitting them in real time, wave after wave. Singapore, my father repeated slowly. You're flying to Singapore. A Boeing 787-9. 14-hour flight. I'm the captain, which means I'm the pilot in command for 342 passengers and a crew of 16. I said it matter-of-factly, not bragging, just stating reality. I'll be gone for 4 days. Singapore layover, then back. It's a regular rotation. Vanessa's mouth opened and closed. You fly to Singapore regularly? Every 6 weeks or so. Also Tokyo, Dubai, London, Frankfurt, Hong Kong. International routes are part of being a wide-body captain. I scrolled through my calendar. I can do dinner next Saturday. November 23rd. I land back from Singapore Friday morning, and I'm off for 3 days after that. My mother wiped her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief she'd pulled from somewhere. Next Saturday. Yes. We'll do it then. Please. I have conditions, I said. My father's eyebrows rose. Conditions? Yes. If I'm going to do this, if I'm going to open up about my life after 8 years of you showing no interest, then we're doing it my way. I held up one finger. First, no phones at dinner. Not for photos, not for social media, not for anything. This is a private conversation, not content. I looked pointedly at Vanessa, who had the grace to look embarrassed. Second, I continued, raising another finger, you don't get to question my choices anymore. You can ask about my life, my career, my experiences, but you don't get to tell me what I should have done differently. That ship sailed 8 years ago. My mother nodded quickly. Of course. Absolutely. Third, and this is non-negotiable, you read the materials I'm going to send you before dinner. I opened my email app. I'm going to send you a document tonight. It's a timeline of my entire career, every major milestone, every achievement, every moment you missed. I want you to read it. All of it. Before we sit down together. Marianne, that seems a bit, my father started. Non-negotiable, I repeated firmly. If you can't be bothered to spend an hour reading about the last 8 years of my life, then you're proving my point. That you still don't really care to know. He closed his mouth, then nodded slowly. All right. We'll read it. And fourth, I said, my voice softening slightly, no crying to manipulate the conversation. No guilt trips. No playing the victim. You don't get to make this about how hurt you are that I didn't try harder to make you listen. You weren't listening. That's on you, not me. The words landed hard. I could see it in the way my mother's shoulders hunched, the way my father's jaw clenched. But I was done protecting their feelings at the expense of my own. Mrs. Whitmore stepped forward then, her voice gentle but firm. Patricia, Richard, I think you should agree to your daughter's terms. They're more than fair, given the circumstances. My mother looked at her friend, then back at me. Okay. Yes. All of it. We'll do all of it. Then I'll see you next Saturday, I said. 6 p.m. And Mom? Make a reservation somewhere neutral. Not the country club, not anywhere you'll run into your friends. This is about us, not about appearances. She nodded mutely. I turned to leave for the second time, but Vanessa's voice stopped me once more. Mari, wait. Can I ask you something? Just one question. I turned back. What? Do you hate us? Her voice cracked on the last word. For missing all of this? For being so blind? I considered the question carefully. Did I hate them? It would be easier if I did. Hate was clean, simple, finite. No, I said finally. I don't hate you. I'm just tired of trying to earn something you should have given freely. Love isn't supposed to come with conditions. Pride in your children isn't supposed to require them to follow a script you wrote. Tears were flowing freely down Vanessa's face now. I'm sorry. God, Mari, I'm so sorry. I know you are. Now. But you weren't sorry 3 days ago when you were ready to mock me in front of Mom's friends. You're sorry because you got caught being cruel, not because you were cruel in the first place. The distinction silenced her. I looked at each of them one more time, my mother with her ruined makeup, my father with his scotch forgotten on the mantel, Vanessa with her phone dangling uselessly in her hand. Next Saturday, I repeated. Don't make me regret giving you another chance. And this time, I walked out. Down the front steps, across the perfect lawn, to my car parked on the street. I didn't look back. Didn't wait to see if they'd follow. I just got in, started the engine, and drove away from the house I'd grown up in, the house that had never quite felt like home. My hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel. The adrenaline that had kept me steady through the confrontation was wearing off, leaving behind exhaustion and something that felt like grief. Not for what I'd lost, but for what I'd never really had. Halfway home, my phone rang through the car's Bluetooth. Jensen Mitchell, my first officer for tomorrow night's Singapore flight. Captain Cross, his cheerful voice filled the car. Just confirming we're good for tomorrow's departure. Weather looks clean, load is light, should be a smooth ride. Thanks, Jensen. I'm good to go. Already reviewed the route and filed the flight plan. Perfect. Hey, I heard about your promotion to lead training captain. Congratulations. You deserve it. Something in my chest loosened. Thanks. That means a lot. You're one of the best captains I've flown with. Everyone says so. You've got a gift for this. We chatted for a few more minutes about the flight details, the crew assignments, the Singapore weather forecast. Normal, professional talk. The kind of conversation where people saw me clearly, valued my expertise, respected my position. When I hung up, I realized I was smiling. Not a big smile, but a real one. My phone buzzed with a text. Then another. Then several more in quick succession. Mom, please send that document you mentioned. We want to read it tonight. Dad, I'm sorry, Marianne. Truly sorry. We'll do better. Vanessa, I love you. I know I haven't shown it right, but I do. Please don't give up on us. I stared at the messages at a red light. Part of me wanted to ignore them, to let them stew in their guilt. But another part, the part that was tired of carrying this hurt, wanted to believe they could change. I pulled into a coffee shop parking lot and opened my laptop. For the next 2 hours, I wrote. Not a dry timeline, but a narrative. The real story of the last 8 years. I wrote about the day I soloed for the first time, the terror and exhilaration of being alone in the sky. About my first commercial flight as a first officer, my hands trembling on the controls during landing. About the night I upgraded to captain and cried in my car because I had no one to celebrate with. I wrote about the passengers whose lives I'd been responsible for, the pregnant woman who went into labor mid-flight and we diverted to Denver. The elderly man who had a heart attack and I coordinated with medical professionals on the ground while my crew performed CPR. The family I flew safely through severe turbulence during a Pacific storm. I wrote about the training programs I'd developed, the young pilots I'd mentored, the safety protocols I'd helped implement. About being invited to speak at aviation conferences, about articles published in industry journals with my name on them, about the respect I'd earned in a male-dominated field. I wrote about the loneliness of success without family to share it with. About holidays spent in hotel rooms in foreign cities because my schedule didn't align with family gatherings, and when it did, I wasn't really welcome anyway. About birthday calls I'd stopped expecting, about accomplishments I'd stopped mentioning. And I wrote about the women I'd mentored, like Zara Patel, who were fighting their own family's expectations. About how I told them to follow their dreams but wondered if I was a hypocrite for still seeking my own family's approval. When I finished, it was 32 pages long. Single-spaced. With photos embedded throughout, me in the cockpit, me with my crew, me receiving awards and certifications, me standing in front of aircraft in cities around the world. A visual timeline of a life they'd missed. I attached it to an email and typed. Mom, Dad, Vanessa. This is who I am. This is what I've done. This is the life I've built while you weren't looking. I need you to understand something. I'm not sharing this to brag or to make you feel guilty. I'm sharing it because I need you to see that my choices weren't a phase or a rebellion or a failure. They were the foundation of a life I'm genuinely proud of. I love you. I've always loved you. But love isn't enough anymore. I need respect. I need recognition. I need you to know me, not the idea of me you've been carrying around for 8 years. Read this before Saturday. All of it. And if, after reading it, you still think I threw my life away, then we have nothing to discuss. But if you can finally see what I've been trying to show you all along, then maybe we can start over. Marianne. I hovered over the send button for a long moment. This was it. The moment where I either opened the door to reconciliation or closed it forever. I pressed send. The email whooshed away into the digital void, carrying 8 years of accomplishments, pain, hope, and truth. My phone rang almost immediately. My mother's name flashed on the screen. I didn't answer. Not yet. They needed to read it first. To sit with it. To understand the magnitude of what they'd missed. Instead, I drove home, took a long shower, and started packing for Singapore. Because regardless of what happened with my family, I had a flight to Captain tomorrow night. I had passengers depending on me. I had a crew trusting my leadership. I had a life I'd built entirely on my own terms. And for the first time in 8 years, I felt something close to peace with that. The next morning, I woke to 43 missed calls and 67 text messages. I'd silenced my phone after sending the email, needing one night of peace before whatever storm was coming. I made coffee and sat at my kitchen counter, the city skyline bright with morning sun, and finally opened the messages. Mom had sent 12 texts between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. I'm reading it. Oh my God, Marianne. Why didn't we know about any of this? The photo of you receiving the safety award. I can't stop crying. You saved that woman's life. You saved her baby. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. I don't know how to fix this. Please call me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We failed you. I love you so much. Dad's messages were shorter but no less affected. Marianne, I'm reading your document. I had no idea. I'm calling tomorrow to talk properly. This changes everything. Just finished. It's 2 a.m. Can't sleep. My daughter is extraordinary and I've been too blind to see it. I'm sorry doesn't feel like enough. Vanessa had sent voice memos. I almost didn't listen to them, but curiosity won. The first one was just crying. Actual sobbing. Then her voice, thick and broken, Mari, I'm the worst sister in the world. I just got to the part about your first international flight, when you landed in Tokyo and had no one to call. You wrote that you sat in the hotel room looking at the city lights and wished you could share it with someone who cared. I should have been that person. I'm so sorry I wasn't. The second voice memo, I just read about the girl you mentored, Zara. The one whose parents don't support her. You wrote that you tell her to keep going even when her family doesn't understand. Mari, you were talking about yourself. You've been that girl. And God, we were those parents. How did I not see it? The third, I'm calling Bradley right now to cancel our brunch tomorrow because I need to finish reading this and I can't stop crying and he wouldn't understand anyway. You've been living this incredible life and I've been too obsessed with my Instagram aesthetic and my stupid marketing campaigns to notice my own sister becoming a literal hero. I don't deserve you. But I want to. I want to be the sister you deserve. Please give me that chance. I set the phone down, my coffee growing cold in my hands. Part of me felt vindicated, finally, they saw me. But another part felt sad, almost hollow. Why did it take 32 pages of documented proof for them to believe in me? Why wasn't my word enough? My phone rang. Mom again. This time, I answered. Marianne. Her voice was wrecked, hoarse from crying. Sweetheart, I've been up all night reading. I'm only on page 24 but I can't. I can't keep going without talking to you first. Mom. You could have died. On that flight through the storm, when the engine failed and you had to make an emergency landing in Anchorage. You could have died and we didn't even know you were in danger. I remembered that flight. 2 years ago, Pacific storm system, engine failure at 39,000 feet, 287 passengers, emergency descent, single engine landing in near whiteout conditions. It had made industry news. I'd been commended for the textbook execution of emergency protocols. I'd sent my family the news article. Mom had responded, glad you're safe. Don't forget about Thanksgiving next week. But I didn't die, I said gently. I did my job. I brought everyone home safely. That's not the point. She was crying again. The point is you've been facing life and death situations and we treated you like you were serving drinks on a commuter flight. I'm ashamed, Marianne. I'm so deeply ashamed. Mom, I don't need you to be ashamed. I need you to understand why I've been so hurt. I do understand. God, how could I not after reading this? You've been fighting for our attention for 8 years and we've been. She choked on the words. We've been cruel. Dismissive. We've been terrible parents. You weren't terrible, I said, surprising myself. You were just absent from this part of my life. You loved the daughter you thought I was, but you never met the daughter I actually became. Silence on the other end. Then, can I keep reading? Can I call you again when I'm finished? I'm flying to Singapore tonight, remember? I'll be in the air for 14 hours and out of contact. Right. Of course. Singapore. She said it with something like wonder in her voice. My daughter flies to Singapore. Your daughter flies everywhere, Mom. I know that now. A pause. Marianne, thank you for sending this. I know it must have been painful to write. But I needed to see it. We all needed to see it. After we hung up, I went about my pre-flight routine. Gym for an hour to stay physically sharp. Review of the flight plan and weather systems. Check of any NOTAMs or airspace restrictions along the route. Communication with my first officer and flight engineer about crew rest scheduling for the long-haul flight. This was my world. Structured, professional, demanding. A world where competence mattered more than connections, where respect was earned through skill and consistency, where no one cared about my last name or my family's social standing. They cared about whether I could fly the plane. At 3 p.m., my father called. I finished reading, he said without preamble. All 32 pages. Twice. Dad. Let me talk. Please. His voice was rough. I'm not good at this. Never have been. Your mother is better with feelings, with words. But I need to say this. I waited. When you left Columbia, I thought you were throwing away your potential. I saw it as a waste, all those years of perfect grades, all that promise, gone because you wanted to chase some romantic idea of flying. I thought I was being realistic. Protective. I thought I was teaching you that life requires sacrifice, that you can't always follow your dreams. He took a shaky breath. But reading your document, seeing what you've accomplished. Marianne, you didn't throw away your potential. You just redirected it into something I was too narrow-minded to value. You became everything I raised you to be, dedicated, excellent, a leader, just not in the field I chose for you. And instead of celebrating that, I punished you for it. My throat tightened. The part where you wrote about your captain's ceremony, he continued. You wrote that you stood there receiving your certificate and the first thought you had was, I wish Dad could see this. That broke me. Because I could have seen it. You invited me. I said I was too busy with a client meeting. Do you remember that? I did. I remembered it perfectly. I chose a client lunch over watching my daughter achieve one of the biggest accomplishments of her life. What kind of father does that? The kind who didn't understand what it meant, I said quietly. That's not an excuse. No, it's not. But it's the truth. He was quiet for a moment. Your promotion to lead training captain. The one you told us about yesterday. When do you officially start? January 1st. Will there be a ceremony? Something official? Yes. At Skyward headquarters in Atlanta. They're doing a whole executive announcement thing. Press release, board meeting introduction, the works. I want to be there, he said firmly. Your mother, Vanessa, and me. If you'll let us. We want to be there to see it. To witness it. Finally. Something in my chest cracked open. Not the hurt breaking wider, but something else. Something that felt almost like hope. It's December 15th, I said. 3 weeks from now. We'll be there. I promise you, Marianne. We'll be there. After we hung up, I stared out my apartment window at the city below. Tiny cars moving through streets, people living their lives, completely unaware that my world was shifting on its axis. My phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. Just 3 words, I finished reading. Then another. Can I come see you before you leave for Singapore? I checked the time. I needed to leave for the airport in 4 hours. You have 2 hours, I texted back. That's it. I can't be late for my flight. I'm leaving now. She arrived 40 minutes later, mascara stained and carrying a Starbucks cup holder with 2 coffees. She looked like she'd been crying for hours, which, based on her voice memos, she probably had been. I didn't know if you still drink oat milk lattes, she said, holding one out. You used to. But I realized I don't even know if that's changed. It hasn't, I said, taking the cup. Thank you. We sat in my living room, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. Your apartment is beautiful, Vanessa finally said. I've never been here before. You've lived here 4 years and I've never visited. You never asked to. She flinched. I know. I know, and there's no excuse for that. Mari, I read every word you wrote. Some parts 3 or 4 times. And I kept thinking about who you've become and who I thought you were, and they're not even the same person. They never were. The part about the flight attendant who had the panic attack, Vanessa continued, her voice shaking. You talked her down over the radio while flying through a thunderstorm. You stayed calm and professional and you saved her from a complete breakdown. And then afterward, you wrote that you called the airline's employee assistance program yourself to make sure she got proper support. That's who you are. Someone who takes care of people even when you're literally navigating a crisis. I shrugged. It's part of the job. No, Vanessa said fiercely. It's part of who you are. And I've spent 8 years making jokes about you serving peanuts while you were actually saving lives. She set down her coffee cup and pulled out her phone. I want to show you something. But first, I need you to know I deleted it. The video from yesterday. The one I was recording when you walked in. I deleted it before I even left Mom and Dad's house. But I wanted you to see it first. To know what I almost did. She turned her phone screen toward me. The video started with me walking through the door in my uniform, the audio catching my mother's dismissive laughter and her comment about the flight attendant being here. Vanessa had been filming from across the room, the angle capturing my face perfectly, the moment of hurt that flashed across my features before I composed myself. The caption she drafted was visible at the bottom. When your sister shows up to a fancy luncheon in her work uniform, face with tears of joy, #family drama, #no filter, #sorry not sorry. I felt sick looking at it. I was going to post it, Vanessa said, her voice barely above a whisper. I had my finger on the share button. I was going to humiliate you in front of my 47,000 followers for content. For likes. For engagement metrics. She pulled the phone back, staring at the frozen image of my face. That's who I've become. Someone who would mock her own sister's pain for internet validation. And the worst part? It wouldn't have been the first time. I've made you into a punchline dozens of times. The sister who couldn't hack it in law school. The one with the cute little job. I turned your life into my comedy material. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Because you need to know how close I came to making it so much worse. And because I need you to understand that when I say I'm sorry, I mean I'm sorry for everything. Not just the big things. Not just missing your achievements. But the small, cruel, constant ways I diminished you. Every eye roll. Every joke. Every time I changed the subject when you tried to talk about your life. She deleted the video as I watched, holding down the delete button until the confirmation appeared. There. Gone. I don't deserve the easy way out of just saying I'll do better. I need to show you. I took a sip of my coffee, processing. What do you want from me, Vanessa? I want another chance. I want to be your sister. Your actual sister, not the person I've been. She pulled something else from her bag, a small notebook, the expensive kind she always carried for work. I started making a list. Things I want to know about you. Real things. She opened it, and I saw pages of questions written in her neat handwriting. What's it like to fly at night? What's the hardest part of being a captain? What do you do on layovers? Do you have pilot friends? What's your favorite city to fly to? What's the scariest moment you've had in the cockpit? What made you fall in love with flying? Do you still love it, or is it just a job now? What are your goals? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? 10 years? She kept flipping pages. The questions went on and on. I realized I don't know any of this. I don't know your favorite route or whether you prefer long-haul or short-haul flights. I don't know if you get nervous before takeoff or if it's second nature now. I don't know what you eat in Singapore or what you do when you can't sleep in a hotel room halfway around the world. I don't know you, Mari. But I want to. I felt tears prickling at my eyes. That's a lot of questions. I have 8 years to make up for. She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. I know I can't fix this in one conversation. I know you don't trust me right now, and you shouldn't. But I'm asking you to let me try. Let me learn who you are. Let me be proud of you the way I should have been all along. I set down my coffee and pulled out my phone. Okay. Let me show you something. I opened my photo gallery and found the album I'd titled, Work, 2024. Hundreds of photos. Me in the cockpit with my crew. Sunrises at 40,000 feet. City lights from above. The curve of the Earth visible from cruising altitude. Photos with other captains, with flight attendants, with ground crew. Certificate ceremonies. Training sessions. Aircraft I'd flown. This is my life, I said, handing her the phone. This is what I wanted to share with you for years. Vanessa scrolled slowly, her fingers trembling. She stopped on a photo of me standing in the cockpit doorway of a 787, the Singapore skyline visible through the windows behind me, golden hour light making everything glow. This is incredible, she whispered. You look so confident. Happy. Like you're exactly where you belong. I am. She kept scrolling. Stopped on a photo of me with my arm around Zara Patel at the Aviation Academy, both of us in front of a training aircraft. Is this the girl you wrote about? The one you're mentoring? Yeah. She just got her private pilot license last month. You're changing her life. I'm trying to give her what I didn't have. Someone who believes in her. Vanessa looked up from the phone, tears streaming freely now. I should have been that person for you. I'm your sister. That should have been my job. Yes, I said simply. It should have been. She didn't argue. Didn't make excuses. Just nodded and kept looking through the photos. She stopped on one that made her catch her breath. It was from 2 years ago, the emergency landing in Anchorage. Someone from the ground crew had taken it, me standing on the tarmac in the snow, passengers deplaning safely behind me via the stairs, my hand on the fuselage of the aircraft like I was steadying myself. This was the engine failure, she said. The one Mom couldn't stop talking about on the phone this morning. Yeah. You look exhausted. I was. That was a 14-hour day including the emergency, the landing, passenger management, interviews with the FAA and NTSB, coordination with maintenance crews, and making sure every single person got to their final destination safely. And you came home to my empty apartment. A glass of wine. A hot shower. And then I filed my incident report and went to bed because I had another flight 2 days later. Vanessa's hand covered her mouth. You went through something traumatic and you had no one. I had my crew. I had my fellow pilots who called to check on me. I had my airline family. I took my phone back gently. I learned to build a support system outside my actual family because my actual family wasn't available. That's not a brag, Mari. That's one of the saddest things I've ever heard. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of lost years hanging between us. Your flight to Singapore tonight, Vanessa said suddenly. What time do you land? Local time? 5:30 a.m. on Tuesday. Can I track it? Your flight? I looked at her, surprised. You want to track my flight? Yes. I want to know when you take off safely and when you land safely. I want to. She struggled for words. I want to know where you are in the world. Even if it's just a dot on a flight tracker app, I want to know. Something shifted in my chest. It was such a small thing, but it felt enormous. Flight SA 217, I said. Skyward International. Departing at 11:03 p.m. from Terminal B. She immediately pulled out her phone and downloaded a flight tracking app. I watched her search for the flight number and save it to her favorites. There. I'll watch for it tonight. You'll be asleep. It's an 11 p.m. departure. Then I'll set an alarm. She looked at me defiantly, almost desperately. Let me do this, Mari. Let me show you I care where you are. I felt tears threatening again. Okay. She stood up, checking her watch. You need to finish getting ready. I don't want to make you late. She moved toward the door, then turned back. The ceremony in Atlanta. December 15th. I'm clearing my entire calendar. I don't care what meetings I have to move or what client events I have to skip. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be the loudest person cheering when they announce your promotion. Vanessa. I mean it. And between now and then, I'm going to learn everything I can about what you do. I'm going to read every article, watch every documentary, follow every aviation account. When we sit down for dinner next Saturday, I'm going to ask you intelligent questions about your career. Questions that show I actually care enough to educate myself. She pulled me into a hug, sudden and tight. I love you. I know I haven't shown it, but I do. You're incredible, and I've been too stupid and self-absorbed to see it. But I see it now. I promise you, I see it now. After she left, I stood in my empty apartment, processing everything. My phone buzzed with a message in the family group chat. Mom, family dinner at Riverside Grill, next Saturday, 6 p.m. Private dining room reserved. Just the four of us. No distractions. No interruptions. Dad, we'll all be there. Thank you for giving us this chance, Marianne. Vanessa, can't wait. I'm bringing my notebook and my questions. Hope you're ready for a long dinner. Smiling face with smiling eyes. I looked at the messages for a long moment, then typed back, see you then. Don't be late. 3 hours later, I was at Riverside International Airport, walking through the secure crew entrance with my flight bag over my shoulder and my uniform crisp and pressed. The terminal hummed with activity, passengers rushing to gates, announcements echoing overhead, the familiar smell of jet fuel and coffee. This was my element. My world. Jensen was already in the operations room, reviewing charts. Captain Cross. Ready for Singapore? Always. My flight engineer, Patricia Nguyen, looked up from her pre-flight paperwork. Weather looks perfect. Smooth air most of the way. Should be a dream flight. We went through our briefing, flight plan review, fuel calculations, passenger load, crew assignments, emergency procedures review. Professional, efficient, routine. This was the language I spoke fluently, the environment where I never had to prove myself because my competence spoke for itself. At 10:30 p.m., we walked through the terminal to our aircraft. Gate B-17. The Boeing 787-9 sat waiting, massive and beautiful, lights gleaming in the darkness beyond the windows. I paused at the entrance to the jet bridge, looking back at the terminal. Somewhere out there in the city, my family was reading about my life, maybe finally understanding who I'd become. But right now, I had a job to do. I boarded the aircraft, walked through the cabin where flight attendants were doing their pre-flight checks, and entered the cockpit. My seat. My domain. I settled into the captain's chair and began my checks. Instruments. Systems. Communications. Coordinates. Everything perfect, everything ready. My phone buzzed one last time before I switched it to flight mode. A text from Vanessa, I'm tracking you. Fly safe, big sister. I'll be watching until you land. Show Singapore what you've got. Red heart. I smiled, switched the phone off, and slipped it into my flight bag. All right, crew, I said into the intercom. This is Captain Cross. Let's take 342 passengers safely to Singapore. At exactly 11:03 p.m., we pushed back from the gate. And somewhere in the city below, I knew my sister was watching a little airplane icon on her phone screen, finally paying attention to where I was going. It was a start. 14 hours later, I guided the 787 through Singapore's early morning sky, the city-state glittering below us like a circuit board of lights against the dark water. The approach was textbook, smooth air, perfect visibility, runway 02L cleared and waiting. Flaps 30, landing checklist complete, Jensen called out beside me. Cleared to land, came the crisp British accent of Singapore approach control. The landing was butter smooth, exactly the kind I'd executed 1,000 times before. As we taxied to the gate, I felt the familiar satisfaction of a flight completed safely, professionally, perfectly. 342 passengers who'd never know my name but who I'd carried across an ocean while they slept. Beautiful flying, Captain, Patricia said from behind us as we ran through the shutdown checklist. Team effort, I replied. You both made it easy. In the hotel shuttle, exhaustion settled into my bones. It was 6:30 a.m. Singapore time, which meant 5:30 p.m. yesterday back home. My body didn't know what time it was, only that it had been awake for 22 hours straight. I checked my phone once we reached the Shangri-La Hotel. 47 messages. Vanessa had sent updates throughout the flight. You're over the Pacific now. I can't believe you're flying over an ocean in the dark. You're braver than I ever gave you credit for. Halfway there. I googled what captains do during cruise and learned about autopilot systems. It's way more complicated than I thought. Descending into Singapore. I'm watching the altitude drop. My heart is racing and I'm not even on the plane. How do you stay so calm? You landed. I watched the flight tracker until it said, arrived. I'm going to sleep now, but I wanted you to know I watched your whole journey. Welcome to Singapore, Captain. Red heart. Mom had sent morning messages. I hope you landed safely. I've been awake since 4 a.m. thinking about you being in the air. Call when you can. Dad, safe landing? I checked the Skyward website and saw your flight arrived on time. Proud of you for getting them there safely. Even some of Mom's friends from the luncheon had somehow gotten my number. Mrs. Whitmore, Patricia has been talking non-stop about your career. I looked up what captains earn and nearly fell over. You're doing amazing, dear. I smiled despite my exhaustion and sent a group text, landed safely. Getting some rest. Thanks for tracking me. I slept until 3 p.m. Singapore time, then woke to an unfamiliar feeling, my phone buzzing with a FaceTime call. Vanessa's name on the screen. I answered, still groggy. It's the middle of the night there. I couldn't sleep. I'm too excited to talk to you. Her face filled the screen, makeup free, hair in a messy bun, sitting in what looked like her home office. How was the flight? Tell me everything. Vanessa, I just woke up. Please. Just a little bit. I've been reading about long-haul flights all day and I have so many questions. Something about her genuine enthusiasm made me soften. Okay. But I need coffee first. I propped the phone up on the hotel desk while I made coffee from the in-room machine, and for the next hour, I told her about the flight. Not the technical details she wouldn't understand, but the human parts, the family traveling to visit relatives, the business travelers I'd welcomed aboard, the smooth cruise over the Pacific with stars visible through the cockpit windows, the sunrise we'd chased across time zones. That sounds beautiful, she said softly. I've flown business class to Europe a few times for work, but I never thought about who was flying the plane. What you were seeing, what you were doing. I just slept through it. Most passengers do. That's the point. We handle everything so they don't have to worry. But you don't get to sleep. You're working the whole time. We have rest periods. Controlled rest in the cockpit, or for long hauls like this, we have crew rest facilities. But yeah, someone's always flying the plane. She shook her head, awed. How do you do it? How do you stay sharp for 14 hours? Training. Discipline. Coffee. I smiled. And loving what I do. It never feels like work when you're doing something you're passionate about. I wish I felt that way about marketing, she said quietly. Sometimes I think I chose it because it sounded impressive. Because I could talk about campaigns and metrics at mom's parties. But I don't love it like you love flying. It was the most honest thing she'd said to me in years. It's not too late to figure out what you do love, I offered. Maybe. She smiled sadly. Okay, I'll let you go. I know you need to rest. But Mari? Thank you. For talking to me. For not shutting me out completely. We're not fixed yet, I said carefully. This is just a start. I know. But it's more than I deserve. She paused. I set up Google alerts for your name, by the way. And for Skyward International. I want to know when your promotion is officially announced. I want to see what they say about you. After we hung up, I sat with my coffee, processing. My sister had stayed up until 3 a.m. in a different time zone just to hear about my flight. She'd spent her day researching my career. She'd set up alerts to follow my professional news. It was such a small thing. But it was everything I'd wanted for 8 years. I spent the rest of my Singapore layover doing what I always did, exploring the city, eating at hawker centers, walking through gardens by the bay. But this time, I took photos. Not for myself, but to share. With my family. With people who were finally interested in seeing my world. The flight back was equally smooth. Jensen and I swapped stories about our worst weather experiences. Patricia showed me photos of her daughter's soccer tournament. We were crew, we were colleagues, we were the family I'd built in the absence of the one I was born into. But maybe, finally, I could have both. When I landed back in Riverside on Friday morning, I was exhausted but lighter somehow. Like I'd been carrying extra weight for years and had finally set it down. I slept most of Friday, then spent Saturday morning preparing for dinner. I wasn't nervous exactly, but I was careful. Guarded. Ready to protect myself if this turned out to be temporary enthusiasm that would fade once the guilt wore off. At 5:45 p.m., I pulled up to Riverside Grill, an upscale restaurant downtown with private dining rooms and a reputation for discretion. Neutral territory, like I'd requested. Mom and Dad were already there when I arrived, sitting close together on one side of the table. They both stood when I entered, and I was struck by how old they suddenly looked. When had that happened? Or had I just stopped looking closely enough to notice? Marianne. Mom moved forward, hesitant, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to hug me. I let her. She held on longer than usual, her hands trembling slightly against my back. Dad cleared his throat. You look good. Rested. Long-haul flights mess with my sleep schedule, but I'm managing. I sat across from them, creating physical distance even as I tried to bridge the emotional gap. Vanessa rushed in 5 minutes later, breathless, carrying her notebook and looking nervous. Sorry. Traffic was awful. You're not late, I said. Relax. She slid into the seat next to me, not across from me. A small thing, but it felt significant, choosing my side of the table instead of theirs. We ordered drinks. Made small talk about the menu. The tension was thick enough to cut, everyone dancing around the real reason we were here. Finally, Mom set down her water glass and looked at me directly. I don't know where to start. Start with the truth, I said. That's all I've ever wanted. She nodded, gathering herself. I read your document 3 times. Every single word. And each time, I learned something new about you, my own daughter, that I should have known all along. The woman in those pages, the captain, the mentor, the leader, she's a stranger to me. And that's my fault. That's entirely my fault. Patricia, Dad started, but she held up her hand. No, Richard. Let me say this. She turned back to me, tears already forming. When you left Columbia, I was angry. Not disappointed, angry. Because I thought you were rejecting everything I'd worked to give you. The opportunities, the social standing, the security. I thought you were being reckless and selfish. She took a shaky breath. But you weren't rejecting what I gave you. You were choosing something different. Something that mattered to you. And instead of supporting that, I punished you for it. Every joke, every dismissive comment, every time I changed the subject, I was punishing you for not being who I wanted you to be. Mom. Let me finish. Please. Tears were falling now, ruining her carefully applied makeup. I spent 8 years being angry at you for a choice that had nothing to do with me. And in the process, I missed everything. I missed watching you become extraordinary. I missed being proud of you. I missed knowing you. She reached across the table, palm up, asking permission. I hesitated, then placed my hand in hers. I can't get those years back, she whispered. But I'm begging you to let me have the years ahead. Let me know you now. The real you. Captain Marianne Cross, who saves lives and trains pilots and flies across oceans. Let me be proud of that woman, because she's remarkable, and she's my daughter, and I've been an absolute fool. I felt my own tears threatening. I needed to hear that 8 years ago. I know. And I'm sorry I couldn't give it to you then. I'm sorry I was too proud, too stubborn, too invested in my own vision of your life to see the beautiful life you were actually building. Dad spoke up then, his voice rough. I thought I was teaching you about responsibility when I refused to support your decision. About consequences. About the real world. But you taught yourself all of that anyway. You learned it while flying planes and managing emergencies and leading crews. You learned it without me. He pulled out a folded piece of paper from his jacket pocket. This is a check. For every $1 I should have given you to help with flight school. I calculated it, tuition, living expenses, everything I would have paid if you'd stayed at Columbia. It's 8 years late, and it doesn't make up for not believing in you, but I want you to have it anyway. I looked at the check. It was for $180,000. I don't want your money, Dad. I know. But please take it anyway. Put it toward the aviation academy you're always volunteering at. Use it to help other young women who have parents like me, parents too blind to see their potential. Let me do something useful with my guilt. I stared at the check, overwhelmed. You really calculated it. Down to the cent including interest. He smiled sadly. I'm a consultant. Numbers are what I understand. Feelings, those are harder. Vanessa cleared her throat. My turn? I nodded. She opened her notebook, and I saw pages of handwritten notes. I spent the last week reading everything I could about aviation. I watched documentaries. I read pilot memoirs. I joined aviation forums. I probably annoyed a dozen airline captains with questions on LinkedIn. She looked up. And I realized how little I knew. How complex and demanding and incredible your job actually is. She flipped to a marked page. So I made a list. Not just questions, but promises. Things I'm going to do differently. She read from her notes. Number 1, I will never again post about you on social media without your explicit permission. Your life is not my content. Number 2, I will ask about your schedule and actually remember your flights. I will track them not to be creepy, but to know where you are in the world. Number 3, I will learn the proper aviation terminology so when you talk about your job, I understand what you're actually saying. Number 4, I will visit you at work. Tour the training center. Meet your colleagues. See your world instead of expecting you to always come to mine. She kept reading, her voice getting stronger. Number 5, I will be your sister, not your critic. I will celebrate your achievements instead of diminishing them. I will be someone you want to share your life with, not someone you have to hide it from. She closed the notebook. I have 17 more. But those are the most important ones. I was crying now, no longer able to hold it back. You really made a list. You're my sister. You deserve a list. You deserve everything. She grabbed my hand. I know I don't get to just say sorry and have everything be okay. I know I have to prove I've changed. So that's what I'm going to do. Every day. I'm going to prove it until you believe me. We sat there, the four of us, crying in a private dining room while our untouched meals grew cold in front of us. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't erasing 8 years of hurt. But it was real. It was honest. It was, finally, a beginning. The waiter knocked softly before entering, clearly uncomfortable with the crying family occupying his station. Is everything all right? Should I come back? I laughed through my tears, wiping my face with my napkin. No, we're good. Actually, we're better than we've been in years. You can bring the food. He nodded uncertainly and retreated. Dad cleared his throat, trying to compose himself. Before we eat, there's something else. Something concrete we want to do. Not just words, but action. Mom pulled out her phone, scrolling to something she'd saved. I spoke with Helena Whitmore. She sits on the board of the Women in Aviation Foundation. They provide scholarships for young women pursuing pilot careers. I knew the organization well. I'd applied for one of their scholarships years ago and been rejected. Not enough financial need, they'd said, since my family was wealthy. Even though that wealth had been completely unavailable to me. We want to establish a scholarship fund in your name, Mom continued. The Marianne Cross Aviation Scholarship. $50,000 annually for a young woman who's pursuing a commercial pilot license without family support. Helena is helping us set it up. I stared at her. You want to create a scholarship in my name? We want to help other daughters whose families don't believe in them, Dad said. We can't change what we did to you, but we can maybe prevent other parents from making the same mistake. And we can do it in your honor, so everyone knows what you overcame. The first recipient will be announced at your promotion ceremony in Atlanta, Mom added. Helena's already working with the foundation to fast-track the application process. We'll present the inaugural scholarship there, and you can meet the recipient. Vanessa was grinning through her tears. I helped design the scholarship criteria. It specifically prioritizes applicants whose families have discouraged or refused to support their aviation dreams. And get this, part of the scholarship includes mentorship. The recipient gets paired with an experienced female captain who'll guide them through their training. Let me guess, I said, already knowing the answer. You want me to be the mentor? Only if you want to, Mom said quickly. We're not trying to force anything. But yes, we hoped you'd want to be involved. To be the support for someone else that you didn't have. I thought about Zara. About all the young women at Clearwater Aviation Academy who were fighting their own battles for recognition. About the girl I'd been at 23, terrified but determined, leaving law school with no safety net and no one believing in me. I'll do it, I said. But I have conditions. Dad smiled slightly. Of course you do. The scholarship has to be merit-based, not need-based. Some of the young women who need this most come from wealthy families who just refuse to pay. Like mine did. Financial needs shouldn't disqualify them. Mom nodded. Already done. Helena insisted on that too. And I want to be involved in selecting the recipient. Not just rubber stamping someone else's choice. I want to read the applications, conduct interviews. I want to find someone who reminds me of me, someone who's fighting for this with everything they have. Absolutely, Vanessa said. That's what we want too. The waiter returned with our meals, and we finally started eating. The conversation shifted, becoming lighter but no less meaningful. They asked questions, real questions, about Singapore, about my crew, about what I loved most about flying. The sunrises, I said, pushing pasta around my plate. Everyone talks about sunsets, but sunrises at 40,000 feet are something else entirely. You're above the clouds, and the sun comes up so fast it's like someone flipping a switch. The whole sky goes from black to orange to pink to blue in minutes. And you realize you're one of maybe a few thousand people in the world seeing that exact sunrise from that exact perspective. That sounds magical, Mom said softly. It is. Every single time. I want to see it, Vanessa said suddenly. Can I? Can I jump seat sometime? I looked at her, surprised. You want to ride in the cockpit? If you'll let me. I want to see what you see. I want to understand why you love it so much. It's not glamorous, I warned. It's hours of checklists and radio communication and monitoring instruments. It's professional and technical and sometimes boring. I don't care. I want to see you work. I want to watch you be Captain Cross. Something warm unfurled in my chest. Okay. I'll arrange it. Maybe a shorter flight first, LA to San Francisco or something. Not a 14-hour haul to Asia. Deal. She practically bounced in her seat. When? Let me check my schedule. Probably after the holidays. I'll coordinate with crew scheduling. Dad set down his fork. I'd like to come too. To the training center, I mean. Not the jump seat, I think I'd be too nervous watching you fly. But I want to see where you train other pilots. Where you work when you're not in the air. You can meet Zara, I said. The girl I've been mentoring. She reminds me a lot of myself at that age. Driven, passionate, fighting against people who don't believe in her. Her parents don't support her? Mom asked. They want her to be a doctor. They think aviation is too risky, too male-dominated, not prestigious enough. Sound familiar? Mom flinched but nodded. I'd like to meet her too. Maybe I can tell her something I wish I'd told you, that watching your child be brave enough to chase their dreams is the most prestigious thing in the world, even if those dreams scare you. We talked through dessert and coffee. They asked about my apartment, about my life in the city, about whether I was dating anyone. I wasn't. Relationships were complicated with my schedule. Normal family questions, the kind I'd stopped expecting years ago. There's one more thing, Dad said as we were finishing. Your promotion ceremony in Atlanta. We've already booked flights and a hotel. All three of us. We're staying the whole weekend, not just flying in for the ceremony and leaving. We want to see Atlanta with you, Mom added. Let you show us around. Take us to your favorite restaurants there. We want to see the city through your eyes, not just rush in and out like we usually do. And I'm bringing Bradley, Vanessa said. My fiancé. It's time he met the real you, not the version I've been presenting. I've been talking about you nonstop for a week, and he keeps saying he can't believe he's never really heard about your career before. What did you tell him before? I asked. She grimaced. That you were a flight attendant who was trying to work her way up in the airline industry. He found out the truth when he saw me tracking your flight to Singapore at 3 a.m. and asked what I was doing. I had to explain everything, what you really do, how I'd been treating you, why I was suddenly obsessed with flight tracking apps. What did he say? He said my sister sounded incredible and he couldn't wait to meet her. Then he asked why I'd never invited you to any of our couples events. She looked down. I didn't have a good answer. Invite me now, I said simply. Her head snapped up. Really? Really? I want to meet the man you're going to marry. I want to be part of your life, Vanessa. I always have. You just never made room for me. I'm making room now. So much room. All the room. She was crying again, happy tears this time. Oh God, I just realized, I haven't even asked you to be in my wedding. We're getting married next June, and I've been planning for 8 months, and I never even asked my own sister to be a bridesmaid. Vanessa. I want you to be my maid of honor, she blurted out. I know I don't deserve to ask, and I know you have every right to say no, but I'm asking anyway. Because I want you standing next to me on the most important day of my life. I want everyone to know that you're my sister and I'm proud of you and you matter to me more than anyone except Bradley. I felt overwhelmed. That's a big ask. I know. And if you need time to think about it, I understand. But I needed you to know that I want you there. Not as an afterthought. As the most important person. I looked at my family, my mother with her mascara-stained face, my father with his checkbook still on the table, my sister with her notebook of promises. They were trying. Really, genuinely trying. Let me think about it, I said carefully. Not because I don't want to, but because I need to see if this lasts. If this version of you, of all of you, is real or just guilt-driven temporary change. That's fair, Mom said. We haven't earned your trust yet. We need to prove we've changed. But we will, Dad added firmly. We're going to prove it. Every day. For as long as it takes. Vanessa squeezed my hand. June 14th is the wedding. That gives you 7 months to decide. 7 months to watch us be better. And if in 7 months you still don't trust us enough to stand next to me, I'll understand. But I'm hoping by then, you will. We left the restaurant around 10 p.m., standing in the parking lot under the streetlights. For the first time in years, saying goodbye didn't feel like relief. It felt like reluctance. Mom hugged me tight. Call me when you have time. Not because you have to, but because you want to. I want to hear about your day-to-day life, not just the big achievements. Dad shook my hand, then pulled me in for a hug too. I'm proud of you, Marianne. I should have said that years ago, but I'm saying it now. I'm so damn proud of who you've become. Vanessa held on longest. Thank you for giving us another chance. We won't waste it. I promise we won't waste it. I drove home feeling something I hadn't felt in 8 years, hopeful. My phone buzzed as I pulled into my parking garage. A text from an unknown number, Captain Cross, this is Helena Whitmore. Your mother gave me your number. I wanted to reach out personally about the scholarship fund. I've been working in aviation advocacy for 20 years, and I've never seen a more meaningful scholarship concept. What your parents are doing, creating this in your name, for women like you, it's powerful. I'm honored to help make it happen. The foundation board is fast-tracking approval. We should have our first recipient selected by mid-December. Looking forward to working with you. I sat in my car, reading the message 3 times. 8 years ago, I'd been alone with my dreams and a rejection letter from this same foundation. Now, I was going to help other women like me, women whose families didn't believe in them, get their chance anyway. My mother's words echoed, we can't change what we did to you, but we can maybe prevent other parents from making the same mistake. It wasn't enough. Not yet. Apologies and scholarships couldn't erase years of dismissal and hurt. But it was something. It was a start. And maybe, finally, it was the beginning of the family I'd always wanted. The next 3 weeks moved faster than any I could remember. My family didn't just promise to change, they actively showed up in ways that left me stunned daily. Monday morning after our dinner, I woke to a text from Mom at 6 a.m., "Good morning, sweetheart. I know you're probably getting ready for work. Have a wonderful day. Love you." It seemed small, insignificant even. But she'd never done that before. Never acknowledged that my workday started before dawn, that I had a routine, a schedule, a professional life that required preparation. Tuesday, Dad sent an article, "Thought you'd find this interesting. New FAA regulations on pilot rest requirements. Would love to hear your professional opinion on whether these go far enough." He'd read an aviation industry article. Voluntarily. And wanted my expert perspective. Wednesday, Vanessa posted on Instagram, not a photo of me, but a photo of a 787 in flight with the caption, "My sister flies planes like this across oceans. She's a captain, a trainer, and a leader." I spent years not understanding how incredible that is. Never again. Proud doesn't even begin to cover it. Airplane #aviation hero #sisterlove. The post got thousands of likes. Her followers flooded the comments. "Wait, your sister is a pilot? That's amazing. Captain. That's so cool. She responded to every single comment with more details about my career, my accomplishments, my upcoming promotion. She was actively correcting the narrative she'd spent years building. By Friday, Mrs. Whitmore called me directly. "Marianne, I wanted to give you an update on the scholarship. We received 42 applications in just 1 week. The response has been overwhelming. These young women, their stories are heartbreaking. Families who refuse to pay. Parents who mock their dreams. One girl's father told her flying was for boys and lesbians and she should focus on finding a husband instead." My stomach clenched. That's horrible. It is. But because of you, because of what your parents are doing in your name, she has hope now. They all do. You've created something bigger than just financial support. You've created visibility. Validation. These girls see your story and realize they're not alone. When do we start reviewing applications? I'm sending you the first batch tonight. We'll narrow it down to 5 finalists, then conduct video interviews. The selection committee includes me, you, a representative from Skyward International, and a retired female captain who's been with the foundation for years. Your parents insisted you have equal voting power. That evening, I opened the application file Helena sent. 42 personal statements, each one a mirror reflecting my own past. My parents say I'm wasting my potential. They paid for my brother's engineering degree but refused to help with flight school. My mother told me no man will want to marry a woman pilot. She says I'm being selfish by choosing a career over a family. I'm working 3 jobs to afford ground school. My dad says if I really wanted it, I'd have already done it. He doesn't understand I'm doing it without any help. I read every single one, tears streaming down my face. These were my sisters in struggle. My proof that I hadn't been dramatic or oversensitive or unreasonable. This was real. This pattern of dismissal and discouragement was everywhere. I narrowed my favorites to 8 applicants, then forced myself down to 5. Helena and I had a video call the next morning. I can't choose, I admitted. They're all deserving. They all remind me of myself. I know. But we can only select one for the inaugural scholarship. The foundation is hoping your parents might fund additional scholarships in future years if this one goes well. They will, I said with certainty. This matters to them now. They'll fund as many as it takes. We scheduled interviews with the 5 finalists for the following week. In between, I flew a rotation to Tokyo, 3 days total, including layover. Vanessa tracked every leg of the journey, sending me photos of the flight path with comments like, "You're over the Pacific right now. Stay safe," and "landing soon. Can't wait to hear about Tokyo." When I returned, there was a package waiting at my apartment. Inside, a leather-bound journal with "Captain's Log" embossed on the cover, and a note from Dad. "Marianne, I read that pilots used to keep detailed logs of their flights, their observations, their experiences. I know modern systems make that unnecessary now, but I thought you might enjoy having a place to record the moments that matter to you. The sunrises you described. The passengers whose stories touch you. The flights you want to remember. I want to read it someday, if you'll let me. Love, Dad." I sat on my couch holding that journal, overwhelmed. He'd researched aviation history. He'd thought about what might be meaningful to me. He'd asked permission to be part of my world instead of demanding access. The scholarship interviews happened over 2 days in early December. 5 remarkable young women, each fighting for their dreams against family resistance. There was Keisha Martinez, 24, working as a dispatcher while saving for flight school. Her parents were immigrants who'd sacrificed everything to send her to college for accounting. When she changed paths to aviation, they stopped speaking to her. Lily Chen, 19, whose parents had already paid for her brother's medical school but told her flying was unladylike and refused to contribute $1 to her training. Sarah Thompson, 26, a single mother whose ex-husband used her aviation dreams as evidence she was an unfit parent in custody proceedings. Rachel Morrison, 22, whose father was ironically an airline captain himself, but told her women weren't built for the stress and responsibility of command. And Maya Okonkwo, 20, whose family threatened to disown her completely if she pursued aviation instead of law school. After the last interview, the selection committee convened. The retired captain, Judith Barnes, spoke first. "They're all exceptional. Choosing one feels impossible. The scholarship criteria emphasize not just merit but impact," Helena said. "Which candidate will this money transform most significantly? Whose path will this change most dramatically?" I thought about my own journey. What would have changed my path most? Money would have helped, certainly. But what I'd needed more than money was validation. Proof that I wasn't crazy for choosing this. Evidence that someone believed in me. "Maya Okonkwo," I said quietly. "She's facing complete family estrangement. She's already enrolled in ground school, paying out of pocket, working overnight shifts at a hospital. She's doing this entirely alone, and her family has given her an ultimatum: give up flying or lose them forever. But Rachel's situation with her pilot father is particularly painful," the Skyward representative argued. The irony of a captain discouraging his own daughter. "I know," I interrupted gently. "But Rachel has allies. She mentioned an uncle who's supportive, friends who believe in her. Maya has no one. This scholarship wouldn't just fund her training. It would be the first time in her life someone chose her dreams over their own expectations." Judith nodded slowly. "Marianne's right. Maya needs more than money. She needs proof that she's not alone." The vote was unanimous. Maya Okonkwo would receive the first Marianne Cross Aviation Scholarship. Helena called her that afternoon while I listened on speaker. "Maya, this is Helena Whitmore from the Women in Aviation Foundation. I'm calling with news about the Marianne Cross Aviation Scholarship you applied for." "Oh. Okay." Maya's voice was small, braced for disappointment. "Maya, I'm pleased to tell you that you've been selected as the inaugural recipient. Congratulations." Silence. Then a sound that might have been a sob. Are you serious? This is real?" "Completely real. $50,000 for your flight training, plus mentorship from Captain Marianne Cross herself. She's actually here with me now." "Hi, Maya," I said, my own voice thick with emotion. "Captain Cross?" She was definitely crying now. "Oh my God. I read about you. Your story. It's exactly like mine. My parents think I'm throwing my life away, and I keep wondering if they're right, if I'm being stupid and stubborn, but then I read about you, Anne." "You're not being stupid," I said firmly. "You're being brave. And you're not alone anymore. I'm going to help you through this, every step. We're going to get you to that cockpit." "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much. You have no idea what this means." But I did know. I knew exactly what it meant. After the call ended, I sat in Helena's office, emotionally exhausted and deeply satisfied. "Your parents are going to present the scholarship to Maya at your promotion ceremony," Helena said. "They specifically requested that honor. They want to stand in front of your colleagues and the aviation community and publicly support a young woman pursuing her dreams. They want everyone to see them do what they didn't do for you. That's..." I struggled to find words. "That's actually really meaningful. They're trying, Marianne. Really trying." My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Helena just called to tell us about Maya. We're so excited to meet her. Thank you for letting us be part of this. We know it doesn't fix what we did, but it feels like we're finally doing something right." Dad texted separately, "Proud of you for choosing Maya." Helena explained her situation. "We're going to make sure this scholarship continues every year. No young woman should have to choose between her dreams and her family. Love, Dad." Vanessa sent a voice memo. "Mari, I'm crying in my office right now. My assistant thinks someone died. Helena just told me about Maya and I can't stop thinking about how that could have been you if you hadn't been stubborn enough to do it anyway. You're changing lives. You're literally changing the trajectory of someone's entire future. That's what heroes do. That's what my sister does. I left Helena's office and walked to a nearby park, needing air and space to process. I sat on a bench watching joggers and dog walkers and people living their ordinary lives, and I felt the weight of the past 8 years begin to lift. My family hadn't just apologized. They'd taken action. They'd created something lasting and meaningful. They'd put their money and their reputation behind young women like me, publicly acknowledging that they'd been wrong about everything. It wasn't perfect. It didn't erase the hurt. But it was real change, sustained effort, genuine transformation. And in 9 days, I'd stand on a stage in Atlanta and be officially named Director of Flight Operations while my family watched from the audience. They'd meet my colleagues, see my professional world, witness the respect I'd earned. They'd finally see me. All of me. Captain Marianne Cross. December 15th arrived wrapped in crisp winter sunshine. Atlanta's Skyward International headquarters gleamed against a cloudless blue sky, the modern glass building reflecting light like a beacon. I stood in my hotel room at the Marriott downtown, adjusting my dress uniform one final time. 4 gold stripes on each shoulder. Captain's wings above my name tag. Every button polished, every crease sharp. This was it. The culmination of 8 years of fighting to be seen, to be respected, to be valued for who I actually was rather than who others wanted me to be. My phone buzzed. Vanessa, we're in the lobby. Mom's already crying and the ceremony hasn't even started. She made Dad bring extra tissues. We're so ready for this. I smiled, feeling that now familiar warmth that had been growing over the past 3 weeks. They'd flown in yesterday, and we'd spent the evening touring Atlanta together. I'd taken them to my favorite restaurant near the training center, introduced them to other captains I knew, showed them the simulator facility where I trained pilots. They'd asked endless questions, taken photos, been genuinely present. Dad had stood in the simulator, looking at the replica cockpit with something like awe. You do this every day? All these instruments, all these decisions, all this responsibility? Every day, I'd confirmed. My God, Marianne. I had no idea. Another buzz. This time from Maya Okonkwo, Captain Cross. I just landed in Atlanta. I can't believe I'm really here. My roommate lent me a dress for the ceremony. I've never been to anything this fancy. I'm terrified and excited and I can't stop shaking. I typed back, meet me in the lobby in 20 minutes. We'll go in together. You belong here just as much as anyone else. Her response was immediate, thank you. For everything. You changed my life. You changed your own life. I just helped open the door. I grabbed my coat and portfolio, took one last look in the mirror, and headed downstairs. The lobby was already buzzing with Skyward personnel and guests. I spotted my family immediately, Mom in an elegant navy dress, Dad in his best suit, Vanessa in burgundy with Bradley beside her, looking nervous and out of place among the aviation crowd. There she is, Mom said, her voice breaking on the words. She pressed a tissue to her eyes. Oh, sweetheart. You look so official. So, commanding. Mom, you've seen me in uniform before. I've seen you wearing it, she corrected. I've never really looked at what it meant. The stripes. The wings. The authority. I see it now. I finally see it. Dad pulled me into a tight hug, whispering in my ear, I'm prouder today than I've ever been in my life. Not because of the promotion, though that's incredible, but because you did this without us. You proved you didn't need our approval to succeed. That takes more strength than I ever gave you credit for. Bradley stepped forward, extending his hand. Captain Cross, I'm Bradley Ashford. I'm honored to finally meet you properly. Vanessa has been talking about you non-stop for weeks. I feel like I should apologize for not insisting on meeting you sooner. I shook his hand, studying him. He had kind eyes and a genuine smile. You didn't know what you didn't know. Vanessa didn't exactly advertise my career. I should have asked, he said firmly. That's on me too. But I'm here now, and I'm incredibly impressed. Vanessa showed me your Wikipedia page. Yes, you have a Wikipedia page, and I spent 3 hours reading about your achievements. You're remarkable. Vanessa beamed beside him, pride radiating from every pore. She'd changed so much in 3 weeks it was almost startling. The sister who'd mocked me was gone, replaced by someone who seemed genuinely invested in celebrating me. Maya appeared in the lobby entrance, looking overwhelmed and beautiful in a simple black dress, her natural hair styled in elegant twists. I waved her over. Everyone, this is Maya Okonkwo, the inaugural recipient of the Marianne Cross Aviation Scholarship. Mom immediately stepped forward, taking Maya's hands in hers. Maya, it's such an honor to meet you. We read your application, your essay, your entire story. What you're doing, pursuing this dream despite everything, you remind us so much of Marianne. Maya's eyes welled up. Thank you, Mrs. Cross. This scholarship, it's everything. I can actually afford to finish my training now. I can actually become a pilot. You will become a pilot, Dad said firmly. We're going to make sure of it. And when you do, we'll be there cheering just as loudly as we're cheering for Marianne today. We moved together toward the auditorium, a small cluster of people who, 3 weeks ago, had been fractured and broken, now tentatively rebuilding something that resembled a family. The ceremony hall was impressive, 300 seats, all filling rapidly with Skyward executives, senior captains, training staff, and media. The aviation press was here to cover the announcement of my promotion along with the scholarship presentation. This would be public, documented, permanent. I took my seat in the front row with other executives being honored today. My family sat 5 rows back. I could feel their eyes on me, their attention finally, fully focused on my world. The CEO of Skyward International, Marcus Webb, took the podium. He was a silver-haired man in his 60s, a former pilot himself, with 40 years in the industry. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today as we celebrate excellence in aviation leadership. Today, we announce several key promotions within Skyward International, but I want to focus particularly on one that represents not just professional achievement, but the embodiment of our core values: safety, leadership, and mentorship. He clicked a remote, and my photo appeared on the massive screen behind him, me in the cockpit, mid-flight, focused and professional. Captain Marianne Cross joined Skyward International 8 years ago as a first officer. In that time, she's accumulated over 6,000 flight hours with 0 safety incidents, earned type ratings on multiple aircraft, upgraded to captain ahead of schedule, and developed training protocols that we've implemented fleet-wide. Her emergency landing in Anchorage 2 years ago has become a case study in our training program for textbook crisis management. I felt my face heat up as the audience applauded. I glanced back at my family. Dad was recording on his phone. Mom was crying again, but smiling through the tears. Vanessa was clapping so hard I could hear her from 5 rows away. But what makes Captain Cross truly exceptional, Marcus continued, is her commitment to building the next generation of aviation leaders. She volunteers at Clearwater Aviation Academy. She mentors young women entering the field. She actively works to make aviation more inclusive and accessible. And that's why I'm thrilled to announce her promotion to Director of Flight Operations for North American Operations, effective January 1st. The screen changed to show my new title, my photo, the scope of my new responsibilities. The applause was thunderous. I stood and walked to the podium, shaking Marcus's hand, accepting the official certificate and a small crystal aircraft symbolizing the position. I stepped up to the microphone, looking out at the sea of faces, colleagues who respected me, family who was finally seeing me, and Maya, who represented the future I was helping to build. Thank you, Marcus, and thank you to everyone at Skyward for this incredible opportunity. When I was 23 years old, I made a decision that a lot of people thought was foolish. I walked away from law school to pursue aviation. My family didn't understand. My friends questioned my judgment. But I knew, somewhere deep inside, that this was where I belonged. I paused, finding my family in the crowd. It took 8 years for the people closest to me to see what everyone in this room has known for a while, that I'm good at this. That I belong in this cockpit. That my choice wasn't a mistake or a phase, but the beginning of the life I was meant to live. Mom was sobbing openly now. Dad had his arm around her, his own eyes wet. To anyone out there who's fighting for a dream that others don't understand, keep fighting. Your path doesn't need their approval to be valid. Your success doesn't need their validation to be real. Find your people. Build your family. And never, ever let someone else's limited vision define your limitless potential. The applause was deafening. I saw Vanessa on her feet, followed by my parents, then Bradley, then Maya, then the entire audience in a standing ovation. When I returned to my seat, Marcus called my parents to the stage. And now, for a very special presentation connected to Captain Cross's promotion. Patricia and Richard Cross, along with the Women in Aviation Foundation, have established the Marianne Cross Aviation Scholarship, providing $50,000 annually to a young woman pursuing commercial aviation without family support. Mom and Dad walked to the stage, looking nervous but determined. Mom took the microphone first. My husband and I spent 8 years not understanding our daughter's choices. We spent 8 years dismissing her achievements, questioning her decisions, and failing to see the extraordinary woman she was becoming. We can't get those years back. We can't undo the hurt we caused. But we can do this. We can make sure other young women don't have to choose between their dreams and their families. We can make sure that someone believes in them, even if their own parents don't. Her voice broke, but she pushed through. This scholarship is our apology to Marianne, but more importantly, it's our commitment to young women everywhere who are being told they can't, they shouldn't, they won't. We're here to say, yes, you can. Yes, you should. And yes, you will. Dad took the microphone. Maya Okonkwo, would you please join us on stage? Maya stood shakily, making her way to the podium. She looked terrified and awed and completely overwhelmed. Dad shook her hand formally. Maya, it's our honor to present you with the inaugural Marianne Cross Aviation Scholarship. $50,000 for your flight training, plus mentorship from one of the best captains in the industry, our daughter. Use this to chase your dreams with the same courage and determination that Marianne showed us. Make us proud. Make yourself proud. Maya accepted the oversized ceremonial check, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, she managed to say. Thank you for believing in me when my own family won't. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for this chance. The 4 of us stood together on that stage, my parents, Maya, and me, and I felt something shift permanently. This wasn't just reconciliation. This was transformation. My parents weren't just apologizing for the past, they were actively building a different future. After the ceremony, the reception was packed with people congratulating me, shaking my hand, taking photos. But the moment that mattered most came when my family gathered around me in a quiet corner. We have something for you, Vanessa said, pulling out a wrapped box. Open it. Inside was a leather flight log, similar to the journal Dad had given me, but this one was engraved, Captain Marianne Cross, Director of Flight Operations. We've always been proud. We just forgot to show it. With love, Mom, Dad, and Vanessa. Inside, they'd filled the first few pages with their own entries. Mom, December 15, 2025, today I watched my daughter accept a promotion she earned through talent, dedication, and courage I never gave her credit for. I'm sorry I wasn't watching before. I'm watching now. I'll always watch now. Dad, my daughter saves lives. My daughter leads teams. My daughter changes the trajectory of other women's futures. I spent years measuring her against my expectations instead of celebrating her on her own terms. Never again. Vanessa, to my sister, my hero, my captain. I'm sorry I made you fly alone for so long. I'm honored to be your co-pilot in life from now on. Clear skies ahead. I closed the book, unable to speak through the tears. We know we can't erase 8 years, Mom said softly. But we can fill the next 80 with all the love and support and celebration you deserved all along. I'll spend the rest of my life proving we've changed, Vanessa added. And in June, when I get married, I want you standing next to me. Not because you have to, but because by then, you'll know you can trust us. You'll know we've earned that place in your life. I looked at my family, imperfect, flawed, but trying so hard to be better. I think you already have, I said quietly. I think we're going to be okay. Dad pulled us all into a group hug, and for the first time in 8 years, being with my family didn't hurt. It felt like coming home. Later that night, after the reception ended and everyone had left, I stood on my hotel balcony looking out at Atlanta's skyline. My phone buzzed with a message from Zara at the Aviation Academy. Saw the news about your promotion. You're amazing, Captain Cross. Can't wait to be just like you someday. I smiled and typed back, be better than me. That's how this works. We lift each other up until we all reach the sky. Because that's what I'd learned through all of this. Success isn't just about reaching your own dreams. It's about turning around and pulling others up behind you. It's about being the support for someone else that you wished you'd had for yourself. I'd spent 8 years being invisible to my family while becoming a leader in my field. I'd built a career that spoke for itself, earned respect that needed no validation, created a life that was authentically mine. And now, finally, the people who'd given me life were learning to see the life I'd actually built. The reconciliation wasn't perfect. The hurt wasn't erased. But for the first time in 8 years, I felt like I had both, my chosen family in aviation, and my blood family learning to truly know me. I looked up at the night sky, at the stars visible even through Atlanta's city lights, and thought about all the flights ahead of me. All the sunrises at 40,000 feet. All the passengers I'd carry safely home. All the young women I'd mentor into their own cockpits. My mother had asked what I wanted from them. I wanted to be seen. To be known. To be celebrated for who I actually was, not who they wished I'd be. And standing here now, with my promotion secured, my scholarship established, and my family finally, genuinely in my corner, I had it. All of it. Captain Marianne Cross, Director of Flight Operations. Daughter. Sister. Mentor. Leader. Finally, completely, wholly seen. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.